Welcome to a new episode of the Sports World with Patrik. This is, of course, going to be a playoffs recap episode. So, let's go ahead and start off in the NBA and the NBA playoffs. First, in the first round, you had in the Western Conference, you had the Oklahoma Thunder playing the New Orleans Pelicans. The Thunder defeated the Pelicans 4-0 in the first round. Next is the LA Clippers and the Dallas Mavericks. The Mavericks defeated the Clippers 4-2. Next in the West was the Minnesota Timberwolves and the Phoenix Suns. The Timberwolves defeated the Suns 4-0. Next was the Denver Nuggets versus the LA Lakers. The Nuggets defeated the Lakers 4-1. Out in the East, the Boston Celtics were playing the Miami Heat. The Celtics defeated the Heat 4-1. Next in the East was the Cleveland Cavaliers playing the Orlando Magic. The Cavaliers defeated the Magic 4-3. Next in the East was the Milwaukee Bucks playing the Indiana Pacers. The Pacers defeated the Bucks 4-2 for their first playoff win since 2014. Next in the East, or the last but not least in the East, was the New York Knicks versus the Philadelphia 76ers. The Knicks beat the 76ers 4-2. So here are your conference semifinals setups. First in the West, of course, is the Oklahoma Thunder versus the Dallas Mavericks. And then the Minnesota Timberwolves versus the Denver Nuggets. At the moment, actually, Minnesota leads, or the Timberwolves lead the Nuggets 1-0. And of course, today is Monday, so they are playing a game at 10 p.m. later on this evening. Next is now to the East is the Boston Celtics versus the Cleveland Cavaliers. That game does not start. The first game in that series does not start till Tuesday at 7 p.m. And of course, the last conference semifinal in the East is going to be between the Pacers and the Knicks, and that game is today at 7:30. The Thunder versus the Mavericks will be on Tuesday at 9:30. So I'm going to go ahead and make some predictions of who is going to be in the conference finals, and then who makes it to the finals and who wins the championship. So in the NBA finals, I'm going to say the Thunder are probably going to beat the Mavericks, and then the Nuggets will more than likely defeat the Timberwolves. That being the Thunder versus the Nuggets in the West, and then in the East, I think it's going to be the Celtics versus the Knicks. And then in the West, the conference final will be, of course, between the Thunder and the Nuggets. The Nuggets will probably advance to the finals. And then the Celtics will more than likely defeat the Knicks, and that will mean that the final will be between the Celtics and the Nuggets. I think it's going to be the Celtics. Now, each round, I'm going to give you sort of what I predict now will happen. So I think that the Thunder are going to beat the Mavericks 4-0. It's going to be an easy sweep for them. Next, of course, the Nuggets being down to the Timberwolves right now, 1-0. The Nuggets will more than likely defeat the Timberwolves. They'll make a comeback, and it'll probably be a 4-2 serious win for the Nuggets. Next will be, of course, the Celtics versus the Cavaliers. Since the Cavaliers are coming out of a Game 7, I think the Celtics will defeat them. It'll probably be a 4-1 series at best. And then the Knicks are playing the Pacers. which will be.
Okay, I found this on.
I apologize for that. Siri just decided to chime in on this conversation, of course. So it'll be the Celtics versus the Cavaliers. That'll be a 4-2 win, and then the Knicks will beat the Pacers 4-1 more than likely, just so that they can win back in New York. The Celtics will then defeat the Knicks 4-3. I'm gonna say on that one. And then out in the West, the Nuggets will of course win 4-2, leaving it being that the Celtics will play the Nuggets, and that will more likely be a 4. Well, it'll probably come down to 7 games, so it'll probably be a 4-3 win for the Celtics. Next, with the PWHL season being over, of course, the teams in the PWHL playoffs are going to be Toronto, Montreal, Boston, and Minnesota. Ottawa and New York have both been eliminated. New York has won the gold plan that they had in place, so therefore they will draft first overall at the PWHL draft later on this year, this summer in Minnesota. The first of the PWHL games will be against Toronto. So now that Toronto gets to choose who they want, because they clinched the first overall position in the PWHL, it will more than likely be a they have a choice between Boston or Minnesota. Of course, if I was Toronto, I'd probably take Boston at the moment. They might choose to go with Minnesota, since Minnesota has been on a 5-game losing streak since the World's break. So that will definitely be in that situation. But of course, Toronto has until 7:30 today to choose the opponent that they won. Of course, with the PWHL, the first overall team choose whatever they want to play, third or fourth. So that is their choice. Of course, they'll have till 7:30 today. So now let's switch from the PWHL and the NBA over to the NHL in the Stanley Cup playoffs. So let's start off again with the Western Conference. In the Western Conference, the Dallas Stars were playing the Vegas Golden Knights. That went to a Game 7. Dallas defeated the Vegas Golden Knights 4-3 in that series. Next, of course, is the Winnipeg Jets versus the Colorado Avalanche. In the West, the Avalanche defeated the Jets 4-1. Next in the West was the Vancouver Canucks versus the Nashville Predators. The Canucks beat the Predators 4-2 in that series. And then the Edmonton Oilers and the LA Kings. The Oilers beat the Kings 4-1 in that series. Now out to the East. The East had the Battle of the Sunshine State, and that was between Florida and Tampa Bay. The Florida Panthers and the Tampa Bay Lightning. The Panthers defeated the Lightning 4-1. Next in the West was the ever-old rivalry series between the Boston Bruins and the Toronto Maple Leafs. This also went to a Game 7. Boston ended up defeating Toronto 4-3 in that series. Of course, Boston now has the Celtics and the Bruins in the playoffs. Next was the New York Rangers versus the Washington Capitals. The Rangers defeated the Capitals 4-0. And the very last series, the last but not least series in the East, was between the Carolina Hurricanes and the New York Islanders. Carolina defeated the Hurricanes defeated the Islanders 4-1 in that series. So now here are all the second round matchups for the Stanley Cup playoffs. in the West, you've got the Stars versus the Avalanche and the Canucks versus the Oilers. In the East, you have the Panthers versus the Bruins and the Rangers versus the Hurricanes. Of course, the Rangers and the Hurricanes have already played the game. The Rangers are up 1-0 on the Hurricanes at the moment. So the Stars and the Avalanche, of course, out in the West. I think that's going to be here's my predictions now for the Stanley Cup playoffs. So it will more likely be the Avalanche playing, or Avalanche winning, claiming their seat at the Western Conference Final. That will more than likely be a 4-2 series. And then the next series in the Western Conference is between Vancouver and Edmonton. I think Edmonton wins this one 4-1. Out in the East, I think the Florida Panthers defeat the Bruins 4-2. It'll be a pretty close series there. And then out in the East, it will more likely either be, actually, let's say it this way. I think it's going to be the Canes defeating the Rangers 4-3. This is definitely going to go to a 7-game series. Carolina's got that very strong first line, along with all the players that they acquired during the trade deadline. I mean, the Rangers acquired quite a few players, but it definitely would be nice to see Carolina versus the Rangers playing. So now the Western Conference being between the Avalanche and the Oilers, it will more likely be the Avalanche defeating the Oilers, and that will be more likely a 4-3 series with the Colorado Avalanche going to the Stanley Cup Final. Next would be the Florida Panthers versus the Carolina Hurricanes. I think the Hurricanes finally get over their hump. They win the Eastern Conference Final and go to the Stanley Cup Final for the first time since 2006. Of course, the Avalanche versus the Carolina Hurricanes. I think the Carolina Hurricanes go on to win that one, and it will go to a Game 7 between Carolina and the Avalanche, with Carolina winning it in Game 7. Of course, Rod Brind'Amour, their head coach at the moment, is the one that was there the last time that they won the Stanley Cup Final. He was the captain of that team. So I think that would be a pretty special moment for the Carolina Hurricanes. So, of course, that is all for this episode. This is sort of just a playoff recap. And then once they get past the semifinals and the second round here, and then once the PWHL playoffs start, I'll give you a little bit more of a recap. Of course, the next episode is coming out tomorrow. So, thank you for listening.